take the conversation to something different, talking about the richness of African culture.
All right, the richness of African culture can, of course, be felt through folklore, music, and many, many more. African storytellers are finding more interesting ways to pass these messages across to a wider audience, across continents and seas. Now, the Legend of Alkebulan, an animation movie by Tribe Temple, is one of such stories which has been told, rather, by incredible Africans making use of technology and art to tell an incredible story about African deities.
The movie, according to the co-founder, depicts the ancient name of Africa known as Alkebulan. Alkebulan, mother of mankind or guardian of Eden. Alkebulan is the oldest and the only word of indigenous origin. Africa was initially named Alkebulan. Did you know that? And it was widely referred to as Alkebulan before the name Africa was birthed. The film features a host of iconic characters from African mythology, including Shango from Yoruba, Ekwensu from Igbo, and Mansa Musa. We're now joined this morning by the guests, but first, let's take a look at this clip.
Rather than watch them suffer, we should be defending them.
Our people, our city. Is it really for their good? Or are you trying to ease your unending desire to become king amongst gods?
Know your place.
I see you have lost your pride and common sense, just as you have lost your kingdom.
That was quite intriguing and exciting. Now let's get to talk about it properly. We're joined by Scott C. Eneje, who is a tech expert and the story director, as well as the co-founder and the brains, one of the big brains behind the Legends of Alkebulan. Good morning, and thank you very much for joining us.
Good morning, thank you for having me.
I'm a huge fan of animations. I'm usually so excited when I get to see animations, especially by African, storytellers. So
That's
I can't
cool.
wait for us to get into the conversation.
That's cool.
There's so much learning that a number of people are doing here. First of all, from Africa being named Alkebulan before
Alkebulan,
time.
yeah.
How did you get into all of this?
Research. So I think growing up, we've always loved cartoons. We've always loved animation. It was how we learned about things around us, how we learned about the world, and it became clear that storytelling sort of controlled what we believed in, how we believed in certain things. And at some point, we decided we wanted to be able to tell our own stories without really knowing the depth of it. We felt like we see a lot of stories about different characters. We see a lot of deities being portrayed as heroes, and it makes you feel like maybe we don't have ours, because growing up, ours were just demonized. So we thought we didn't have any good one. And we started to research, and as we went deep, we found out we had characters who had hearts. We had characters who were more in love than anyone you could imagine. We had characters who fought for things that were incredible. And, that kind of depth showed us that we had stories that we've not even touched, and we felt like we could do this, and we started. As for the name, it was still research. When we found out, we were like, that's a very interesting name. Why didn't we keep it? It's a mouthful, but it's fun to even say it, because the meaning is what gives it power. It's the cradle of life, the garden of Eden. It tells us that this is where everything began. And that thought alone is refreshing.
It's powerful.
Yes.
So, you've talked about our African deities. Whilst we here glorify the deities, the Western deities, so we have I think my favorite would be, I don't know if Thor is counted as a deity.
Yes, he is a deity.
I have a huge crush on Thor, by the way.
Not if you know the real one.
You see, so whilst we're crushing on Thor, then there is Shango here, and people are wondering, why is Shango in some way demonized and Thor celebrated? Yeah. But do you maybe foresee that there might be kickbacks, because we've become a very highly religious society?
True.
That might not be open to the idea of welcoming these deities who are now being celebrated as superheroes.
Here's the thing. I believe we give power to anything. I once said something that if I put this cup in front of me and say a word of prayer to this cup, because as human beings, we are spirit beings, all of a sudden that cup becomes powerful. It's the reason why people will tell you, put this child on this chair and he will get better, and that child will get better, right? So the power you give to something is the power it would sort of take form. With us, we do not care so much for all of that. What we care about is the story behind these people, right? Sit down and ask yourself, how did Shango, for example, live his life? And then you read the story. You know, we call them deities, but realistically, Shango is an Orisha, right? Orishas are not gods. Orisha are powerful men who did extraordinary things, right? You see, that changes the narrative. You realize, oh, this is not one special god. This is a person who did amazing things and earned that title for himself, right? And then you realize the mortality behind them. You realize that this man had anger issues. This man had love. You know, when he died, one of his lovers cried the ocean we know today as the Ocean River. That thought alone is refreshing. And I feel like that's what we wanted to dive into. So we are, in a way, staying away from the religious bit of it, but focusing on the characters, these people who did extraordinary things that we can learn from. You know, growing up, I idolized Superman, you get. But think about it. This is a human being or a person from another planet who is flying about in capes and underwear. And I'm allowed to idolize that. And then we talk about Africans who fly and you freak out because if an African is flying, then, you know, he's coming to suck your blood. Yet we love Dracula, right? There are movies you would see that Dracula is the person you do not want to die, but he's a vampire who sucks blood, right? I think what that tells you is people take what the story tells them. If you tell the right kind of story, anything can be accepted. It just has to be told
I like the angle that you're bringing this from, because you're talking about sharing the humanity of these characters, sharing their real life experiences, and even the Western deities or the Western superheroes that we idolize. It's interesting that as much as they have superpowers, they also have weaknesses.
Yes.
We're talking about, you just talked about Superman flying
With
around.
kryptonite.
But yes, kryptonite was his weakness,
Yes.
right? So to share that you can be a superhero and still have weaknesses. And, you know, these are things that I believe people can relate with in some way or learn from. But in the making of this, seeing as animation is still a developing space in the Nigerian entertainment industry, what would you say are some of the challenges, you know, the biggest challenges you encountered? I'm guessing you say money.
Oh, interestingly, no.
Really?
Yeah, I think the obviously money is a challenge in everything,
But
right?
it doesn't get as much financial support.
Not here, not really.
Yeah.
Many people think cartoons don't have or animations don't have weight, but you just mentioned Superman. Almost every person grew up watching one thing. In the 90s, it was Voltron, right? Then later on, it was Samurai X, it was Godzilla. How many people knew that these things had movies? But everybody, almost everyone saw the cartoon, right? So as much as we don't give it credit, there is an interest, and I think that's one of the things we want to bring in to show people that people care for animation.
So would you say that the challenge is trying to establish the fact that it has a huge fan base?
Yes, it does have a huge fan base, and I think that's one of the things we want to like tackle. You know, other challenges would be technical issues. You know, getting all the technical aid you can get, getting all the skill sets you can get to create such a level of animation. Not because you don't have the people, but how many of those people are like in the right places to work with? Those are some of the struggles.
I mean, we've run out of time, but very quickly, give me a little expo. When are we expecting this? And can you give me like one or two actors who you featured in this as quickly as possible?
Actors, like the characters, the people who played them?
Yeah, the voices.
The voices. Okay. I actually voiced the character. I voiced one of the characters that I think everyone is supposed to hate. His name is Aimo. He's supposed to be the dubious character who is behind almost everything that happens. And then a friend of mine voiced Amadioha.
All right.
That's Jima.
All right.
Yeah.
And it's coming out shortly?
The movie is already on, the first episode is already on YouTube, and we're going to be releasing the other episodes for the first season.
All right. Thank you so much for sharing with us. I am going to check it out on YouTube.
Yes, please.
We search for Alkebulan and then we get to
Legends of Alkebulan.
Legends of Alkebulan.
By Tribe Temple.
All right. Thank you so much for your time with us this
Thank you for
morning.
having me.